Look, Lani, I know it's your first day on the job, and I don't know how it worked at your other properties, but here, self-disclosure is discouraged. Especially with these VIPs who arrive on the boat. You know, you don't want to be too specific as a presence, as an identity. You want to be more generic.
Generic?
Yes. You know, it's a Japanese ethos where we are asked to disappear behind our masks as pleasant, interchangeable helpers. It's tropical kabuki. And the goal is to create for the guests an overall impression of vagueness that can be very satisfying, where they get everything they want, but they don't even know what they want, or what day it is, or where they are, or who we are, or what the fuck is going on.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to HBO's official White Lotus podcast. I'm your host, Evan Ross Katz. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by two actors I absolutely adore, Murray Bartlett and Sabrina Impacciatore. They brought to life two unforgettable White Lotus managers over the course of 2 seasons, Armond and Valentina, who, despite being worlds apart in personality, share strikingly similar roles within the White Lotus averse.
I am Valentina, the resort manager. I mean, I'm impressed that you're even here.
Why are you impressed?
It's a long trip from Los Angeles, and you're quite old, no?
In this episode, the three of us will dive into the parallels between their characters. Not only do Armond and Valentina hold the same job title, they're both gay characters, bending over backwards to accommodate a revolving door of mostly straight hotel guests.
So many gay people work in service professions where you have to be obsequious, deferential, kind. You have to slap a smile on your face.
Dan Savage is a sex and relationships advice columnist and podcaster. For decades, he's offered advice about sex and romance in his column, Savage Love.
So many gay people negotiate really a straight world where we have to be not always on our best behavior, as Armand is definitely not, but we always have to be smiling at the faces of the straight people who are sometimes making us utterly fucking miserable because they have the power and they outnumber us. And so there's that, I don't want to say two-facedness of Armand, but the way he copes and navigates is, I think, very familiar to gay people, particularly from the earlier parts of our lives when we haven't been able to assemble our own friend groups. We haven't been able to self-select out of being completely surrounded by straight people all the time.
Now, settle in for Sabrina and Murray's perspectives. And just so you're all aware, there is some discussion of sexually explicit topics in this one, so consider this a content warning.
Sabrina, you look gorgeous. You always look gorgeous. You do too. You do too.
No. Please.
I get to see you less, Sabrina, and it's such a joy seeing you, and you look radiant.
Oh my God.
Now, can you show Murray your heels, though? Because I feel like
Murray, guarda, look.
Oh my God.
Huh?
Yes.
Not bad, huh? And I can run in this, you know? I love them. Like, I really love, I could lick them for how much I love them.
I get it.
Because, wow, they are all like smooth and amazing. I love them.
How did the two of you first meet?
In real life, because in imagination, I met him a year before. I was dreaming about him. He was haunting me because I felt so much pressure to fit in his huge shoes. To me, I felt like I could never, ever be able to not make people to regret him, you know? So I didn't sleep for many weeks with the idea. Yes, Murray, you didn't know that? Yes,
No,
Murray.
I didn't know that. No.
Yes, because when I saw your performance, allora, I don't feel hierarchy about power. To me, the hierarchy is about talent. And so I feel in awe about big talent. When I see a genius actor, I feel in awe. So when I see him performing in that brilliant, unforgettable way, because really, I saw the series once and I never forgot anymore his performance. And that's why I was so scared. I was terrified. I felt so much pressure. I cried also. I have to say, I have to confess, I cried for you, Marbury. So then that's why when I met you, it was meeting a dream, meeting someone that you've been thinking about so much. And then when you finally meet him, it's bam, it's an explosion. That's why really I remember that I saw him at that party. I didn't expect him to be there. And I saw him, and I remember that I started to run to him. And then, yes, we jumped, we hug each other like this. I remember very well because to me it was like, oh my God, here
Me
he
too.
is.
I feel like we shared that energy, and from my memory, we kind of flung ourselves at each other, which seemed kind of fitting. I don't know. There was just perhaps a shared joy in what we'd both been through individually.
And it was really a big emotion for me.
And Murray, surely your dreams were being haunted by Sabrina as well. Was that the case?
Well, I guess I kind of had the sort of inverse experience, really. I mean, first of all, well, let's start inversely, I guess, that when we met, it felt like we knew each other, even though we'd never met.
Yes.
I mean, not just because we'd watched each other and sort of got to know each other, but we took a special interest in each other, I think, without knowing that we were, without individually knowing that the other was doing this, but because we shared that kind of experience, even though they manifested, in different ways. They were different characters, but there was a lot that they had in common. And so there was this kind of incredible shared experience that we had, a very kind of bizarre and unique, which made me feel like I knew you very well and felt a great deal of affection and kind of understanding of what you've been through or something.
Yes.
It's kind of odd, but it was interesting. But I guess my inverse experience is that I had none of the stress of watching. I had all the joy of watching you. I thought you were
so
extraordinary in the show, and my job was already done, so I could just lose myself in what you were doing. But also because I watched the show. I'm not great at watching myself in things. I don't think many of us are. I mean, I did watch and enjoy the first season, especially watching everyone else. And Mike did such an amazing job. So there was a lot of joy in watching it. But watching you in the position that I played in the show gave me a sort of, I don't know, I got a perspective on my performance through you, I guess.
Interesting.
Because I got to see the hotel manager that I was playing just sort of in a different form. Watching you was just sort of joyful and nerve-wracking in the same way that playing Armand was kind of nerve-wracking for me, just sort of feeling all the things that you were feeling. But I guess all that to say that when we met, there was this kind of rich history that we had together without having ever met. It's such a bizarre thing, right? I mean, it was
It's true.
So it was very lovely and felt like family in a weird way.
Yes, exactly.
I'd love to hear from both of you about first receiving the offer to be on the show, finding out you're going to play this character. And obviously, we know the character, having seen you both bring them to life. But before they were brought to life, when they existed only on the page, what were your initial reactions?
Well, me, I was almost having a stroke. Yeah. Yes, no. Literally, I was I did 2 auditions, and then no one said nothing for weeks. So I didn't know what was going to happen, and I was trying not to think about it. So I remember this struggle about how can I not think about this audition that I did. And so, in fact, that day I was trying to kill my thoughts. And it was a Saturday, and I went inside a theater to watch a show. Because when I watch a show, I lose myself and I don't think about anything else, and I forget about real life. And so I was inside the theater, and the show was on. And I saw my phone that was vibrating, and I felt this must be an important call, because the phone vibrates in a different way. And so, so I had to say to people like, hey, excuse me, I'm sorry, I have to go. It was like I didn't want to disturb the actors on the stage, so I'm sorry. And I was literally walking on the seat like this. Really, I was like walking on people. and then I went out of the theater, and there were my 2 Italian agents on a video call, and they told me this unbelievable news, and I started to cry and laugh and scream. And I still was in the theater. I was in the foyer, so there were people that looked at me, and I couldn't stop crying and screaming. It's oh my gosh, I will never forget that moment. Never ever in my life. Forever. Yes.
What about for you, Marie?
Oh my God. Well, it was weird because we were completely locked down. I did my audition in my garage, and I did one audition with my Australian accent, and then I did it American because I usually audition with an American accent. And I was at dinner, and again, like, my phone rang twice, I think. It was a different vibration. There was something about the vibration. I was like, this seems like it's important. And I'd only read the first script, which I think was probably good, because once I found out what was ahead of me and what this character went through, I was equally like thrilled and excited and terrified, which is what usually happens when you get a job. You're like, yes, oh my God, I want this job. And then you get it and you're like, oh shit, now I got to do it. But the phone call came, and it was my agent, and they told me, and I was like, great, this seems so weird because we're in a pandemic, and now I'm going to Hawaii, and I love Mike White, and it sounds like there's great people in the cast, but I didn't really know. I knew very little. And then Mike called me the next day, and he was like, I'm so happy that you're doing the job and blah, blah, blah. So you've read all the scripts, right? And I was like, no, I've read the first script. He's like, there was a pause, and he was like, oh, well, we better get you those scripts. So I read the scripts on the way over to Hawaii. Oh. And then I was, like, so excited, but also like, oh my God, this is an incredible role, which I'm so lucky and thrilled to play, but also like terrified, because you want to do it justice. It's such, Sabrina, like I don't know what it was like in the second season. I imagine it was similar. I mean, we played and we ad-libbed sometimes, but the script was so amazing, so specific, so detailed. Pretty much everything that you see, and what I did anyway, is written. So it was extraordinary to have that handed in your lap. And then the first night we arrived and we were gathering, it must have been the first night that we all came out of quarantine, and we all met at this big table at the empty Four Seasons hotel in Hawaii. And Jennifer Coolidge came late, as only Jennifer Coolidge can, in the coolest, most amazing way. And she looked at me and she was like, you get to play the role that I wanted to play. And I was like, oh, God.
Oh, this is so much
Even
Jennifer.
Coolidge wanted this role. Like, no pressure. Um, so it was sort of a slow unfolding of me realizing that I had the role and what the job was, and that it was actually real. It was such a surreal experience anyway, but also in the midst of a pandemic and all of that. It was a strange and wonderful thing.
Yes.
It's also a strange and wonderful thing imagining Jennifer Coolidge as Armand.
Right? I mean,
a mindfuck.
It would be kind of incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
That
footage.
sort of went through my head. I was like, yeah, maybe you should be playing this.
Yeah, I can see it.
But it's funny, sorry. It's funny that he said, I had a strong idea about the character. While me, it was totally the opposite. I didn't have an idea because this character was not totally described as your character in the first season. So I had like only few scenes, no? When you have only few scenes, the script was so brilliant. But at the same time, I think that Mike hadn't already defined totally this character, no? So I was feeling very, very lost at the beginning, like lost, and I was scared because of Murray. And so I remember the first days as a nightmare because I didn't know how to play this character. And actually, day 2, I had to play a scene with Jennifer and with John Grice. And I was so intimidated. In this scene, I was supposed to interrupt them. They were fighting, they were having a discussion, and I was supposed to interrupt them. And for the first 2 takes, I didn't interrupt them. Because I was too much intimidated. So the AD, after 2 takes, she came to me, she said, Sabrina, you are supposed to talk in this scene. I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I don't want to disturb, really. So can you imagine? That's how everything started. And so I just followed Mike's indications for the first days, and he told me this sentence that was, the more she's bitchy, the more she's funny. And me, I was having a big trouble being bitchy with Jennifer because I was too intimidated and I just wanted to jump on my knees in front of her, like I love her so much. I can't be mean. And exactly in that day, that's the moment where the Peppa Pig line came out because I was so desperate that had to be bitchy. And that's what my brain saved me in this moment. And from that moment, like something made a click inside of me and I got the character there in that moment. I understood, okay, because Mike was so happy about that. When I saw him so happy, I felt, okay, this is the direction. And then actually, this character came out day by day. It was such a journey of discovery with Mike. That's why Mike became so meaningful to me, because this was a journey that surprised me very, very deeply, very, very deeply, in a very deep emotional way. And yes, I understood the character at the end, I think.
I think it's fair to say.
I think that, well, I know that you're not alone in that, because I felt the same thing, and I know some of the other actors in the first season felt that as well. I mean, we wondered whether it was because we just hadn't, it was the pandemic, and so there was no rehearsal, and we hadn't met Mike before. A lot of us hadn't. The first week I was terrified, and there was a couple of nights where I was like, oh my God, this is a nightmare. I don't know what I'm doing. And I mean, first of all, I think that that's kind of like I don't want to say healthy, but I think that we all go through that to a certain extent at the beginning of a job. Like, you're still figuring it out. You can figure it all out in your head or in rehearsal, whatever. But when you get to actually do it, it takes a little while sometimes for it to reveal itself to you. And on my first scene, we did that scene. It was like working with David Fincher. We did it, I don't know how many times, but like it felt like 30 takes. And each take, Mike just kept getting me to do different things.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm not getting what he wants. This is like, I just like, he hates what I'm doing. Like, I'm not getting it. And then we'd finished, and then I came off set or to the side of the set, and one of the other actors was there. And I was like, man, that was really intense, like really tough. And he was like, yeah, no, he's did that to me too. Like, I think he's just sort of getting to know us. Like, he wanted to see who are you in this character, and what is this? And actually we shot a couple of scenes and then we reshot them because he rewrote some of the stuff around what we were doing. Like I think I think it's such a beautiful thing, and it's easy as an actor to be intimidated by that because you think, I'm getting it wrong, and as we know, there is no wrong. It's just you're just figuring out who you are in the character, and Mike leaves space for that. I mean, the script didn't really change much after those first couple of scenes at all, but he adjusts to what you're bringing to it. And it's such a beautiful thing, I think. But it is a little terrifying in the beginning because everyone's finding it and you're sort of finding it with him. And then you keep finding it with him. But it from my experience anyway, after that first week of terror, it was incredibly fun. And he said one thing to us the night before we started shooting, that it was really important to him that everyone had fun. And we were like, yeah, everyone said that. But that's so important to him, that everyone has fun. And it was, I mean, that's sort of one of the secrets, I think, of any kind of acting is once you can push through your self-consciousness and your fear of like humiliating yourself or whatever, and you can just have fun with it. That's the best place to be, I think. And Mike allows you to do that if you're willing to leap off into it with him. It's such a beautiful thing.
Oh my gosh.
It's so interesting that you both had these sort of breakthrough moments in the role. It sounds like you both were feeling intimidated, unsure of the decisions that you were making. And then through doing the work, you found the character. So I think it's just so interesting. There are all these parallels between you both as these characters, but also it sounds like these actors, which makes us being all in conversation together all the more enriching. I want to get into some specific scenes with each of your characters. Murray, there's a scene that stays burned in my brain and the brains of many fans of the show.
I wonder what that might be.
Listen, I'm obsessed with you. I want to get you naked. What do I got to do? You can have tomorrow off. I'll give you whatever shifts you want. It's party tonight.
It's a scene that takes place midway through the series. It's between your character and Lucas Gage's character. It takes place in an office. There might be some ass eating.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't written specifically that was what happened in the scene. Before we started shooting, I had a 45-minute meeting with Mike. That was the only time that we had really to talk about stuff. And that whole meeting was really about him saying, I don't want you to feel uncomfortable about any of the stuff that we're doing. Like, there's a few scenes where there's some obviously confronting things or whatever. And but we never really got into specifics. So from my memory, he sort of left it up to Lucas and I to figure out what we felt comfortable with. And so Lucas and I came up with this idea of like, oh my God, what if we did that? And so we went to Mike and said, we think this should be like an ass eating thing. And he was like, he paused and then he paused and then he went, can we do that? much? and we were like, we think so. We're up for it. So, those scenes, when you actually do those scenes, you're like, oh my God, why did we decide to do this? Because it is kind of confronting. And it was, the reason why we chose that is because we're being caught. And we were trying to think of what would be, for those characters that catch us,
yes,
what would be the most shocking thing for them to see? And that seemed like that would be it. So, most shocking, most
brilliant.
confronting for them.
You see the genius actor, no?
Yeah.
Genius actor.
But I was surprised, I guess, that there was a big reaction. We kind of hadn't thought about it. We were like, this will be funny. It's also like a great shocking moment. Like, it's definitely memorable, but like, we didn't realize that it would become
how memorable.
Yeah.
Yes.
or that, that would really like stand out as a moment in the way that it did, I guess.
Now, I'm going to break from the Murray and Sabrina interview for just a moment to talk to a few others about this famous scene. First up is Dan Savage, who you heard from the top of the episode. He's a sex and relationship columnist and a podcaster, so it's not infrequent that analingus will come up as a topic in his work.
Well, it's interesting that a lot of straight people freaked out about it as much as they seem to do, because there was another show on HBO, Girls, that pioneered or already showed us what analingus looks like. And again, we see the older person about to eat the younger person's ass, which is, as a gay man, I was like, okay, that's usually foreplay for anal sex. Like, usually, particularly among adult gay men with access to showers, it's usually what comes first before anal. So it wasn't, as a gay man, I wasn't like flabbergasted that one might be eating the other's ass. I was like, this is the progression. This is the beginning of the ass play. And it was interesting. I actually saw that episode with a straight friend who got a little like uncomfortable about it. And I was just like, how could you read me? You'd see how often analingus comes up. And I recommend it to straight people all the time who are thinking about experimenting with anal sex as foreplay.
I did get a chance to talk to Lucas Gage about the scene. He didn't know Murray personally before their storyline on the White Lotus, but like many, he knew his work.
I mean, the most familiar I was with him was Sex and the City, to be honest. That character was seared in my DNA. And I had recognized him from various shows, obviously looking, and he always stood out to me as like such an amazing actor, but I knew him best from the Sex and the City episode.
That afternoon, I was high on another feel-good drug, the new gay friend.
Could you be more fantastic?
And they say you can't meet men in bars.
Well, that was true for me last night. I went to trade hoping to meet someone new, but just a shag, because I've got a boyfriend in Sydney. And the only person I met was you. Not that I'm disappointed.
And your boyfriend doesn't mind if you date other men?
Not date. Have sex with.
Oh, right. The international gay rules.
Absolutely. Blowjobs only. No last names. The gym is a free space, and never ever show up at the same place wearing the same shirt. But then I just crossed over into a whole other set of rules.
Lucas tells me he was just as surprised as Murray that their sex scene went so viral.
Up until 10 minutes before we called action, it was an anal sex scene. That was a thing that me and Murray had come up with on the spot of, let's make it ass eating rather than just a normal anal sex. Like, I think it's more interesting, and I think it's more shocking if you were to open a door and see that in a way. But that being said, I did not think it was going to blow up like that on the internet. And I think, it's great. It's cool. I felt like, you want to have those iconic moments and those memorable scenes and leave a stamp on the show. But it was like such a spur of the moment decision. Like, we're about to roll, and then me and Murray and Mike are just discussing really quick, like, what could we do that's even more funny or more interesting and more shocking? But Mike is constantly open and collaborating on the day. So if it's kind of like best idea wins, and I think that's a sign of a good director and a good writer, a good actor, if they're able to to not be married to their ideas and be able to kind of shapeshift into whatever's fresh and alive in the moment.
Finally, we talked about the scene with Francesca Orsi, who runs drama series and films at HBO. Now, HBO had aired an analingus scene in the past, but the White Lotus scene was still quite audacious.
There have been, over the course of various shows, I'd say, and experiences and scripts and cuts that we will debate on whether something might be too risque or, maybe inappropriate. There's a fearlessness in Mike and what he always proposes and how he writes and what it is that he's delivering. Never once on White Lotus have we ever challenged these audacious scenes. If anything, they made us blush, they made us gasp, but they made us feel gleeful and they made us burst out loud with laughter. So more, go for it. If it's rooted in character, we're good. If it's rooted in psychology, we're good. And you know what? It always feels earned. And sign us up for more.
Now, back to the Sabrina Murray interview. Keeping on theme of the ass, another memorable scene of yours takes place in the season finale of the show.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, I'm in the pineapple suite, and there's a fucking turd in my room. Somebody got in here and took a shit, not in the toilet, in my luggage, on my clothes. What the fuck?
Can you talk about your reaction to learning that your character would not only be shitting in the suitcase, but that we would be seeing this act play out on screen? I think it's very different to imagine it versus to see the way it was realized on the show.
Right. Yeah, I mean, rewind back to when I was flying to Hawaii, having not read any of the scripts and getting to that point and being like, I what? I'm going to be the guy that shits in a suitcase on TV. Okay. I love Mike White so much, and I had been a fan of him for years. So I just, I can't say there weren't moments where I was like, oh my God, that is kind of confronting, or how is that going to play out? But I just thought it was brilliant. I got lucky because we were supposed to shoot that scene at a certain point. A couple of weeks before when we were supposed to shoot it, something happened. I think someone got a false positive, but they were not allowed to work. They brought that scene up and we were I was dressed for another scene. Suddenly we were doing that scene, which was kind of great because then I was like, okay, let's go. But yeah, it was painstakingly detailed and precise in the way that we shot it. We did all different angles. I had a 5-minute conversation with the props guy about what he made the shit out of, and it was which was extraordinary.
What was that?
It was a few different chocolate bars and I think peanut butter, or I don't know, a whole bunch of stuff. It was very, very specific, and he was so awesome, and it looked amazing. And then, so we did all this stuff. Luckily, I have really strong quads because I was squatting over that suitcase for a long time. And then, I think right at the end, we shot the wide shot. And Mike was like, we're just going to get the wide shot. We're never going to use it. But so the day of, I think that or maybe the day before that episode aired, Mike called me sounding really anxious, you've seen this episode, right? You've seen it? I was yeah. And he said, well, because I told you that we weren't going to use that wide shot, but it was just the best shot. And I hope you're not upset. And it's it's
so
an amazing,
sweet.
Right? It's an amazing shot. And of course it's the one that you use. And it's so incredibly graphic, which they didn't, I think they probably did use the actual practical stuff that we had there, but a lot of it I think was done in post. But yeah, it was an extraordinarily long and detailed shooting of that scene that ended up in that one wide shot. That was, kind of brilliant.
Speaking of viral moments, Sabrina, on season 2, I recall one of the first big viral moments was this Peppa Pig moment that we spoke of earlier.
Yes.
You know, you talked about getting to that place, but I'm wondering what it was like for you seeing the reaction to that scene online. I feel like that was a big moment for viewers in establishing the fact that this show that you loved the first time out, you're going to love it again this time.
Allora, first I would like to say about the reaction on set, because I said Peppa Pig, and then right away I felt they are going to fire me right now because I said something that was very offensive somehow, no? And so then the take finished, and no one was saying a word. Like, I mean, I felt, oh my God, I have to explain who is Peppa Pig. I didn't say that Jennifer is a pig. This is a cartoon. So I went to run. I ran away to get my phone, and I looked for the image of Peppa Pig. And I went to one of the producers and I said, hey, look. This is the cartoon. I'm not saying bad things about. Really, I remember that moment I was sure to be fired.
Wow.
Can you imagine? I was so scared. But then I look at Jennifer, and Jennifer could not stop laughing. She was like, she was laughing like this, like a child. And then John Grice came to me and he said, you made Jennifer laugh. That's very rare. She's going to love you for life. That's what he's told me. And I will never forget that moment.
Hey.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, could you take a photo of us?
Yes.
On the best spot?
For sure. You look so pink.
Sure.
Guess who I am? What?
Peppa Pig.
I'm Monica Vitti.
Monica Vitti is dead. But yes.
When you think about both of your characters, is there a single image that stands out as a memory or like a significant snapshot of the character for you?
I don't have the image. I have the deep, deep memory of what I felt. I think that the highest feeling that I felt while I was playing that role was in a scene at the bar when Mia invites me to the room. I will always remember that moment.
Tanti auguri a te. Tanti auguri a te. Tanti auguri, Valentina.
I don't know who that person was. It was not me. I think it was a parallel life where I really, really felt that struggle. I really felt it inside my bones, inside my veins, everything. It's like I was Valentina. I was not Sabrina. I was Valentina. I will never forget that. To be honest, that was, I think, the first time in my life I felt something like that. And I remember that after that moment, after that scene, I literally jumped on him. Like I jumped physically on him. Like I was a monkey. I was a monkey around him, and I was grabbing him, and I was crying, and I said, Mike, I love you, Mike, io ti amo, I love you, Mike, I love you, thank you. And he said, don't thank me, you just did it, yourself. I thought I was someone else, somewhere else, in another time, in another space, in another heart, in another body, in another brain. Thanks to him, he allowed me to go in this mysterious place. And now I'm back, and I have to thank him. Mm-hmm. So that's the image that I have. It's an emotional image. It's not a picture.
What about for you, Marie?
There's one where I'm in my office and I found the girl's drugs, and I'm just looking at the drugs and wondering if I can control myself. Because I think that's a huge thing for the character. Is definitely like a kind of an anchor point for me of like this he's overwhelmed by all this like obnoxiousness and all the kind of the insanity of the world around him, and trying to resist his escape hatch, you know, being his potential addiction to, or, you know, lapsing into his addiction with those things. And I think what I love about that moment is it's quiet and he's not moving, and it's just him by himself. And when he's by himself, sometimes at least, it's kind of dark and sad.
Yeah.
And the other moment that springs to mind, which is more of a sequence really, is being completely high doing the dinner service, where it's just like...
That film is unforgettable.
Yeah.
It's so sort of, because it's connected to that first image, because that's what happens when he like really leans into that. And it's equally sad and also just like ecstatic, you know, like because he's taken a bunch of drugs and he's running away, but it's also like he's in ecstasy and he's feeling like what he wants to feel without the drugs as well, I guess, you know, or maybe, you know, without the drugs at all. But interestingly, that scene, Mike being the person who just sets the atmosphere so that you can be your best and kind of sink into what you're doing, played the music that you hear in the show when I'm doing the dinner service, like incredibly loudly, so that I could just, and we sorted out this choreography with the camera. I mean, it went a lot longer than what you see. It's like, it was this incredible dance that we did, and that was the experience that I had with losing myself.
You were so lucky. I'm so jealous.
It was so...
Release the
That must
extended
be
cut.
such an incredible, amazing.
Thank you both so much, and thank you for creating an atmosphere in which I felt like we were all getting to speak with one another.
But it's you, because, my God, you created this atmosphere. The questions were so right. We couldn't stop talking.
Well, that's that. An iconic meeting of the White Lotus managers' minds. Two brilliant actors and indelible characters, Armond and Valentina forever. Next time on the White Lotus podcast, we will be delving into season 2 through the lens of its major themes, sex and romance.
Some people will say to me, like, oh, I felt so bad for her. And it's like, no, why? She was playing the game the whole time, just energetically, like, enjoying the game.
Harper and Ethan being very superior about the fact that they never lie to each other. But then there's no gulf to bridge. Then there's no mystery. There's no eroticism in their relationship. They're not fucking.
He just looked at me. He just watched and listened, and then he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were like doing a bit as Portia." And I was like, whoa. Like, it just hit really deep, because then that's when I realized, like, whoa, am I Portia?
The White Lotus podcast is a production of HBO and Campside Media. This episode was hosted by me, Evan Ross Katz, and produced by Natalia Winkleman. Our associate producer is Aaliyah Papes. Fact-checking by Gray Lanta. At Campside Media, our executive producer is Josh Dean. Sound design and mix by Bart Warshaw at Cocoon Audio. Special thanks to Michael Gluckstadt, Allison Cohen-Sirokach, and Kenya Reyes from the HBO podcast team. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.